But anyway, it went way up, and I sold thinking I'll just lock in this first place with a sell. Right? Who's gonna catch me? And Netflix went, and Netflix just kept going up until the game ended. I could, if I would have just hodled.
That's part of the problem is people hodl now. Like people just didn't sell during COVID, most stocks.
As soon as I get money, I'm like, sell. I got my money.
All right, I took us live, so we can just get going. I think.
I only hodl for dividends. If you want me to hodl, I need dividends.
That's my not that we were giving stock advice when we do this show. Like no one is giving stock advice at any time, but I will disclose I own a lot of Hasbro stock. I never sell it. I just keep buying it.
I do not say that you should do this. I'm just telling you what I do.
Yep. In fact, I own two stocks right now. I own well, two main stocks. I own Hasbro and I own Adobe.
I own a lot of stocks. I have Index Fund A.
Well, I got all that too, but that's like retirement fund, different. Like I don't.
That's all I've got.
I'm talking about the stocks that I directly buy for real and own outright.
I don't have any of those.
All right, guess we can just get going here. Let's see. I have hit record.
I am also now pressed the button of recordation.
All right, everything looks good here. Stream looks good. That player damn turn game that's over just popped up. Let me close that client. All right. It's Tuesday, January 26th, 2021. I'm Rem.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight we are talking about Hades, the video game. So yeah, I'm doing my work, work from home like you do during COVID, especially if you have the kind of job that me and Scott have. And I'm doing my work, and there's a really important thing I'm working on, like with some people, like right then and there, like finish a thing for a meeting that's about to happen. And I'm doing some like fuckery in Excel, and well, a shared Excel, like a Google Sheet or whatever. But my work PC that I'm remoted into starts to get a little slow, like. Wait, what's going on? Like it's like moving slow. Like I'm trying to put this formula in, it's not working.
I was testing a server because it was slow. Something was making it slow, and I was trying to figure out what was making it slow.
That's way funnier.
As I'm typing, my typing on the SSH connection is sluggish, and I open up top, and there are no processes using up the CPU or memory. The server seems fine in top.
That same thing. I literally open Task Manager. Like, what? Do I have too many Chrome tabs open? Like, what's going on?
And then I look at my NAS. My NAS is blinking. I'm like, oh, is it doing something? So I go to my NAS, and that's quick as the dickens, right? It like immediately, and I check my NAS's activity, and it's like, yeah, not doing much, just chilling, hard drives like how we do.
Yeah.
Right. And then I try to do a Google search, and it's slow as balls. And I'm like, got two different computers. My work computer's on a VPN to work. My regular computer's not. And both of them are kind of slow networky, like just doing a Google search. So I'm like,
Yep. But what was weird is at first, the things I suspected that I had a local ISP problem.
Same.
But then like random stuff was 100% fine. Like YouTube was just 100% fine.
Yep.
But random stuff like the single sign-on for like one particular thing was timing out. Thankfully, because of the nature of my work, I got a pretty early report to figure out what was going on. There was a Verizon ISP outage, and pretty quickly the world figured out that it was like one fiber bundle got cut in Brooklyn and caused a massive outage in the entire Northeast.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting.
Fiber cables so poorly secured.
Well, there's a lot of ways fiber cables get broken. Remember, my job used to be dealing with that kind of crap like in an ancient past.
There isn't more, redundancy.
There is redundancy. Here's the problem. When a big, there's two things going on here. This is where I can talk about my professional opinion. On one hand, during COVID, because of just the extra demands on the internet that are not normally there, like the orders of magnitude more people streaming video constantly, there's a lot more traffic going around than there would be normally at this time.
True.
Simultaneously, no top tier, like no level 1, level 2, like the ISPs that actually run the infrastructure of the internet, there's no reason for them to build out like full path redundancy for that level of traffic because a lot of that traffic will eventually go away.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in this situation
think about how much bandwidth is going is how much like fiber is going to office buildings. That's basically dark fiber now,
Right.
right? And
Except
all
in
the
my case, where
fiber-
I remote to my physical desktop sitting in that building because that is easier.
Sure. And then it's like other, but it's still bandwidth is going to your home that wouldn't be, right?
Yep.
The home bandwidth use is like way up. And Verizon isn't, Verizon, Comcast, whoever the home people are, they're not charging more money right now. They couldn't get away with it. People would riot.
Yep. But the other thing going on is that when a major link goes down somewhere, like the internet, like routing protocols, we've talked about this in ancient episodes of Geek Nights, will like route around the problem. However, that process does take time, and there's a period where routes get weird. So like you might try to hit the same service twice, and one time it takes one route through the internet, and the next time it takes another radically different route for the internet.
When it works, right? I'm sure there's been plenty of times actually, like probably way more times than we know, where something was cut or broken, or a router exploded, or a data center went on fire, or a power outage somewhere.
Fun fact, I caused a data center fire once.
Right? A fiber cable was cut, right? There were probably tons of instances where those things happened and you never noticed because the routing worked and there was another route and it was
the problem was things that transited the Verizon network, which are very common for working and the kinds of things people are doing right now, had to get rerouted. Like at this high level.
Yep.
Coupled with normally, the redundancy of the internet is such that when a big link like that goes down, there's plenty of capacity and like all the other ways to get to places that it does recover more quickly. But now there was just so much more traffic to reroute. Like elevated traffic. Like, there's less redundancy right now. The final thing that's going on, and this is a long-term trend, the internet itself is a lot less redundant than it used to be because people generally access a smaller number of services with a higher like total usage.
Yeah.
And
even if you think you're using a lot of services, all those services are hosted in fewer data. Not every company like has its own data center, like in the 90s or whatever.
Yep.
Right? All the companies in the 90s that had their own data center, right? They just ended up making the data center their business or a part of their business, and everyone else went into those data centers.
Yep. But if like routes to Amazon go down, most of the internet stops working.
Right, like it used to be that like every single freaking person in the 90s who was selling books, selling shit online had to get servers into a data center somewhere. And now one of those people, was selling so many books, they made their own data center, and now half the world's sites are in that one data center.
Yep. There's a tweet I quote it a lot, and it's about this, but it's also about the fact that there aren't a lot of like independent websites anymore. There used to be more websites, and I miss them.
Yeah, there still are actually quite a lot. It's just you can't really find them because, they don't really show up in Google, right? And a lot of them they're not, even if you search for what was on them, they wouldn't be the top result. And even if they were, it's like, it's like those kinds of sites are not.
Like there was a time when the Geek Nights community, like that Geek Nights forum used to be weirdly prominent in Google searches, partly because that was during the Web 2.0 era where over time, a lot of that kind of content moved into social media networks and like got aggregated very differently. And we just happened to maintain a website that had a lot of content that was independent.
You could search for something that's like super Geek Nights specific, right? Like maybe some anime only we reviewed or something.
Yep.
Maybe we'll be in the Google search results somewhere, but not high up. There's going to be a lot of tweets or Pinterest posts about that anime, or Anime News Network may have an article about it.
Yep.
Or
the prevalence of e-commerce. Most of the results you'll get will be e-commerce and aggregator sites and like.
Add the word review. Add the word review to get those out of there. You still won't see a lot of, too many independent websites. I guess Anime News Network is sort of an independent website.
It is.
But yeah.
I tried that. I was looking for Patsukiki Musume because not many people reviewed that.
No. I don't think so.
So anyway, there is actually some fascinating news that has been developing and is continuing to develop rapidly.
Is it really? It's sort of a gaming news, sort of, right?
It's gaming in two ways. It's about a game, and it's about GameStop.
Yeah. So this is extremely Geek Nights news. So here's the deal. right? GameStop is in the shitter, right? It's people are not buying physical games much anymore, right?
Yep.
And if they are, they're not buying them at GameStop. They're ordering them from Amazon or Target.com or whatever.
Yep.
Right? So
that also means there's less secondary market for kids to sell games back to GameStop.
Yep. So that, the kids being able to sell and buy games has gone down. But just in general, people are buying digital games. They're not buying physical games. GameStop is in the pooper, right? Toys R Us is gone also completely, right?
Yep.
Anyway, so GameStop stock, right? Stock market is supposed to represent the value of companies, right? You want to buy companies that are undervalued, where the price of the stock is less than the actual work the company's doing, right? It's like you buy Apple stock before they make an iPhone. Then they make an iPhone and it goes up, right? Common sense.
Yep.
And selling would be the opposite. Like, oh, that new iPhone is shit. Sell, right? Android's going to kick their ass this quarter, whatever,
now,
right?
Here's where things get a little weird. In like olden times, the stock market, like equities is what we're talking about. That's the term for this. Buying equity in a company like GameStop.
You technically and actually own part of the company when you buy its stock, but
yep. You are a shareholder. But there's two types of stock markets. All this is necessary to understand what the hell's going on here. And I'm also going to preface this by saying, despite my day job and everything I know about this stuff, we are not giving advice. We are not lawyers. We are not stock advisors. We are not advising you to do anything in particular at all.
A lot of laws about this shit, and we're not breaking any of them.
Nope. And I also have a lot of extra restrictions on what I say and what I do, so I'm going to be very circumspect about this. But the stock market, the idea is there is a primary market and a secondary market. Anytime you hear about stock trading, that is the secondary market, because the primary market only exists once. That is when a company IPOs. A company says, we are going to issue parts of ourselves out to the world. You can buy those shares so that we will have cash. We will then use that cash to do something. And for giving us that cash, we give you a stake in the company so you can share in those profits.
The only reason the stock market even exists is because you're a company and you could just use business loans and remain a private company forever.
Yep.
Right?
A lot of companies do it. I highly recommend it. It's way better than having shareholders.
It's a good deal. I like it. But, sometimes you want if no one wants to give you a loan, or you want a pile of money, you can sell shares, if you sell 49% of your shares, you can just hold the other 51% forever and no one can make you sell them.
Now, really, there's three things that those shares do. Number one, they technically give you a say in how the company is run, but that doesn't matter to you. Your vote
to have a say, it won't matter.
Your TD Ameritrade proxy vote does not matter.
No, it does.
Two,
I click on it anyway, though.
Some companies, but not as many as used to, will give dividends, meaning every quarter, every month, or whatever schedule, they'll pay you your percentage of the company's profits.
Dividends are a good deal. I like dividends.
Dividends are
if you are a person who is just a normal person and you just want to collect free money, you're basically, what you do is you let the evil people who are ruining the world, hold part of your money, and all the, you hear rich guy becomes billions richer, right? You will get some tiny fraction of that money just slowly dribbling into your account.
Ostensibly, they're paying you for the risk of they might lose your money.
Sure.
There's a few ways to look at it, but here's the key. Dividends aren't that common. A lot of big stocks don't actually pay any dividends anymore. It used to be a lot more common.
Nope. And a lot of them that do pay dividends, they pay out a tiny dividend, like something like 50 cents a share, or that's kind of big.
Well, depending on the share price. Dividends are usually expressed as a percentage of the share price.
Yeah, 5% would be a very large dividend.
Yeah, I'm very happy to get 2 or 3% from some of the stocks I own.
Right. Like, for example, you could buy, I think IBM is something like 5%. It's usually stocks like that, like cruddy-duddy fuddy companies that have the big dividend, right? So you buy some IBM or some AT&T or something like that, and it's like, okay, who knows if this stock, is IBM on the way out? Probably, right? Whatever. But you'll just be making 5% of your money, better than a savings account by a lot, right?
Yep. But also that makes sense because ostensibly you own a tiny percent of that company. So the company pays you that tiny percent of whatever money it makes. Like, that makes sense. That like is an intrinsic value.
It should be giving it to the employees who made that money. But that's a story for another time.
Well, I mean, we're communists now, so.
Yes, of course.
Well, we're closer to neo-communists, actually. I've been reading more about the neo-communist movement in the 70s.
I'm just saying is that all this stuff is basically under the assumption of like, all right, we have evil capitalism. Now what?
Yeah, we're
Which is destroy this evil capitalism so we don't have to do this.
yeah, but we're talking about the reality of capitalism as it is today in America.
Yes.
Don't think we're endorsing any of this.
So all that being said,
No, there's one more important part. Then you can do your bit. The last important thing is that's one way to make money from the stock market, to get dividends paid. The other thing the stock market provides is a secondary market. That is actual stock trading. I might own some IBM, and Scott thinks that IBM is worth more than what RIM paid for it, and might offer to buy it from me for more than I paid IBM for it. That's what all stock trading is, the secondary market. Someone owns the stock and someone else decides that it is worth more or less than what that person believes it is worth. And if they can agree on a price, they will sell it and move it around. So the third way people make money on the stock market is by buying a stock, hoping that other people will believe that stock is more valuable in the future so that they can sell it and make a profit by the difference between what they paid for it and what they sold it for. The interesting thing about that leads into what Scott's about to say is that what determines that price is not necessarily the value of the company. Because what is the value of the company, especially if a stock does not pay dividends?
yeah, I mean, so by all logic, the price of GameStop, what is it worth to someone to be one of the owners of GameStop, right? Let's say you had Elon Musk money, right? Jeff Bezos money. You could just buy GameStop, right? You could just become the owner of GameStop. It's like, how much would you be willing to pay to be the owner of all the GameStops? Like, you own all these little retail
Divide
stores,
that by the number of shares. There's a share price. It's a lot more complicated than that, but it comes down to like how much property does that company own? Like, do they own physical things? Do they have a vault of gold somewhere?
Because if you did buy all those shares, which you absolutely could at a price, you would then be literally the owner of GameStop. You could go to the GameStop employees and boss them around, and you're the boss.
Yeah. If say a company owns like a strip mall, guess what? That's your strip mall now.
Yeah, you can put whatever stores you want in there. Right?
Which means there's almost this floor on the stock price of a company, in that if a stock price gets low enough, the stock price could get lower than the value of the physical things that company owns, at which point it often makes sense to buy that stock.
There's an interesting, semi-weird, maybe not perfect dude who recently just bought Radio Shack, like out of its remains, right? And is like selling T-shirts that sit with the Radio Shack logo because they own it now. They can do whatever the hell they want. Sell Radio Shack T-shirts. They own the trademark as among all the other property that is included. Right?
So basically, at its peak, GameStop during like 2007, GameStop was worth like
2007 holiday season when people are buying Wiis for the holiday. The Wii just came out. It's holiday time. GameStop is at its highest price ever. That makes perfect sense.
Yep.
That is stock market working, the invisible hand of capitalism as it was supposed to be by the book. Right?
Yep. Went down a little bit, came up again to a similar price in 2013 because of, again, retail forces. There was a lot of reasons why people are going to GameStops. And then for all the reasons we discussed, there was a decline.
Something?
Yeah. To the point to where in the year of our Lord 2020, I'm sure GameStop's worth about $4 because GameStop doesn't do anything for you in the modern world.
Yeah, GameStop's in the shitter. No, rightly so.
Yep, wasn't even COVID. Like, this happened long before COVID.
Right, and so being in the shitter, even at $4, right? It's so low. No one's even willing to pay $5 is a breakfast sandwich. No one's willing to buy it, to trade up. Someone's sitting there with a breakfast sandwich, right? Or they could be an owner of GameStop. Like
one whole share of GameStop, and Scott's like, I want to keep my bacon, egg, and cheese.
And people are saying, I'm going to keep the breakfast sandwich. That's how worthless it is. And yet there's something you can do, which is selling short, right? So Normally,
Oh, I want to hear you explain this. I think you understand it pretty well now.
I know how to sell short. So normally, if you owned if you owned the share of GameStop, like you already had one, right?
Yep.
You're like, wow, GameStop ain't worth $5. I'd rather have a breakfast sandwich that continue to be an owner of GameStop. I'm going to sell this to someone who will give me $5, and I'll go buy a breakfast sandwich.
Now let's pretend options and all that other stuff don't exist.
Yeah,
you can basically bet on a stock being more valuable in the future by buying it. But the only way to bet on a stock being less valuable in the future is to sell it if you already have it.
Right. So you're sitting there and you're saying GameStop, that ain't worth a breakfast sandwich, but you don't own any GameStop. So you can't sell any GameStop if you don't own any, right? That's like, imagine if Black Lotus Magic cards, I remember them being $300 when I was a kid. But if you thought they ain't 300, they worth 200, right? I know what I'll do. I'll sell you a Black Lotus for, that I don't even have, right? I'll borrow a Black Lotus from someone else and I'll say, hey, listen, I'm borrowing this Black Lotus from you, but here's a promise. I am required by law to give you another Black Lotus to replace this one that you're giving me. You're guaranteed to get one back at some point in the future. It's no skin off your back. You're going to end up with the same Black Lotus you started with.
Yep.
Right? I'm just going to borrow this for a sec, right? You go and you sell it for $300, right? So now you're sitting there with your $300 and you wait because it ain't worth $300.
Yep.
It's going to go down, right? And it goes down to 200. So you buy a Black Lotus for 200. You give that Black Lotus you just bought back to the person you borrowed it from. So they don't care. They started with a Black Lotus. They ended with a Black Lotus. No problem, right? The person that you sold a Black Lotus to for 300, well, they were a fool, right?
Yep. But whatever. I lent Scott my Black Lotus. A year later, he gives it back to me, and maybe he pays me a fee like, oh, yeah, here's $10 for the privilege of borrowing your Black Lotus. Like, cool.
But I made $100, $90, depending on the fee, right?
And meanwhile, from my side, that $10 doesn't sound like a lot, but what did I risk? I didn't risk anything.
You had no risk whatsoever. You just let someone borrow your Black Lotus with an absolute guarantee that you would get one back.
Now, why doesn't everyone... the two questions people ask about this is, one, isn't this evil and corrupting? The answer is kind of no, because it's a good way to inject bad news into the stock market. Otherwise, there's this idea that everyone could kind of agree to never sell anything and make false valuations go up forever. Like, it's a way to say, no, that stock is worth too much, and I'm going to prove it. I'm going to bet money that it's worth too much. But the other thing that can happen is if the opposite happens, you'll hear people who are learning about stocks talk about this idea of unlimited losses. If I buy a stock for $100 and it goes down to zero, my maximum loss is $100. If
your stock can't go lower than zero, right? If you buy, all the GameStop, it's like, what's the worst that can happen? GameStop goes out of business, the stock is worth $0, and all the money you spent is gone, right? But that's it. You don't lose all the money you didn't spend. You still have. It's perfectly safe.
But I lend Scott my Black Lotus. He sells it for $300. Black Lotus has become worth $1,000. I'm going to tell Scott I want my fucking Black Lotus back right now.
And now I have to go and I sold the Black Lotus. I sold Rim's original Black Lotus for $300. He needs one. I promised him I have to give him one back. They cost $1 million now.
Yep.
They cost $1 billion now. They cost $1 trillion
in the train game 1817 that we recently reviewed. There might not be any to buy at all.
Yeah. And you have to. You have no choice.
Yeah, you can't not.
You can't not do it. And so you could lose all your money. Like, you could short one share of like GameStop, some worthless stock, just one share. And if the price of that stock just skyrockets through the roof, you just lost everything you own, your house, your car. Right? So it's like, you need to be able to do this to inject the bad news in the market, but doing it is risking it. Even if you do it a tiny bit, you're risking your entire everything, all your dollars, right? Garnish future wages. Like, you're just boned. People smartly shorted GameStop a lot because it ain't worth a breakfast sandwich. It's worth less than a breakfast sandwich. It's worth nothing. So everyone shorted it, tried to make it go down even more, which is what you should be doing. Common sense. It's the same common sense that makes it go up when it's holiday season and the Wii just came out.
Pretty normal thing. But now, cue a Reddit board called Wall Street Bets, which someone described in a news article I read as, what if a bunch of Redditors like found a Bloomberg terminal?
Yeah. So these people, are nerds, care about GameStop for some reason. And they saw, because it's public information, hey, everyone and their mother is selling short on GameStop, right? Smartly so, all right? What if a bunch of us just bought GameStop?
It's like $4. It's cheap. I can buy a lot of shares at GameStop.
Even if you're not wealthy, even if you just got like $100, you can buy 20 something shares. You could buy some shares, right? Let's all start together buying GameStop shares. They're so cheap. And all those people who sold short are gonna get boned.
Now, in the old days, like, this isn't real. This is not a pump and dump scheme, but basically, it is against the law to manipulate a stock price on purpose to do something. Like, I can't put a bunch of fake press out to trick other people into buying a stock so that I just bought so that I can then sell it after they all buy in. But the question that happened here, and you can read these articles to get the specifics because, like, we're not going to explain everything that happened. If a flash mob buys a stock and pumps
everyone independently, it doesn't seem like you can't identify someone as like an instigator, right? It's like a bunch of people all simultaneously and somewhat organizedly, but somewhat independently just did this thing at the same time.
Kind of as a joke.
Kind of real, right? And normally in the past, there wouldn't even, because E-Trade type stuff has been around since like the late 90s even.
Yeah.
You could buy stocks with
retail investors rarely impact the market for a lot of reasons I don't want to get into.
There was not even those like day trading people, like, well, that's their hobby, right? There's not enough of those people and enough money in those people to like move the market. You know what can move the market? A pension fund can move the market.
Yeah.
Right?
An investment firm, a hedge fund.
Right. It's like those, a mutual fund of some kind, right? Those people are like have billions and billions of dollars that like they could just like for example, like, some pension fund in your state could just like buy GameStop and it wouldn't even be a big deal because it's such a small time thing, right? So individual people just investing their spare change, right, with E-Trade or TD Ameritrade or any of those things, it was not enough money total to move the needle on any kind of real company, right?
But the combination of the number of internet nerds who did this, coupled with the sheer amount of shorting that was happening, led to a fascinating situation where, as of right now, when the stock market closed, GameStop is worth, or at least was trading at, almost $148 a share, which is more than double what that stock was worth at the peak of GameStop's actual success.
Right now, the company isn't doing any better.
Oh, it's not even a better or worse. Literally nothing changed with GameStop itself.
GameStops are the same shitty stores they were yesterday. They have different owners now.
The only thing that happened is these Redditors decided to do this.
They could, if they hold long enough, they could vote and put in a new board of GameStop eventually if they collectively act in that manner.
So
that is a thing that could happen.
I think we've dwelled on this a little bit long for an episode of Geek Nights. It's going to be about something else.
It's
but
such a fascinating news.
It is. Like, I'm going to link to a bunch of different articles that give a lot of different perspectives on this. But again, I cannot stress enough, we are not advising anything. Do not do anything. Do not take any action based on any words we have said.
Here's my personal advice based on no skills.
This is Scott's advice. I am not in any way associated with Scott for this purpose.
Yeah, don't do anything. Just live your life. Don't ignore any investment nonsense. No coins, no GameStops, no nothing. Just
especially your fucking coins. I can't even get like a used 1080 right now because of your fucking coins.
No gambling, right? No casinos, no stocks. Don't touch any of this.
Hey, 50% of the times I gambled in a casino, it was fucking awesome. I still use that pen I bought with the money we won.
If it's not Monopoly money, don't do it.
So, a real brief other news. We'll talk about this again probably in the future because there's more going on. But basically, Microsoft tried to announce they were increasing the price of Xbox Gold, ostensibly to try to convince people to just go all the way and upgrade to buy the Xbox Game Pass. Like Xbox, like it's one of those things where consoles have, like Microsoft has the thing, and like Nintendo has it too. You gotta pay them to be able to use their like online network to play games online with various amounts of like benefits to doing so. But separately, they're trying to get into a broader market by selling the Game Pass so people could like play these games on their PCs, and it's a different service.
Xbox Game Pass is sort of in between Google Stadia and Netflix of games, right? It's like it's not a bad deal on its face value. But I will tell you, personal experience with Xbox Game Pass. I had a free trial of Xbox Game Pass. I put it on my PC, and I tried to run it. It didn't fucking work. So I uninstalled that shit. It's trash. Don't do it. Fuck them.
I mean, it's tough. This is the kind of news where I don't have that much insight, partly because...
This is not a normal Windows 10 PC.
Yeah.
It's a Microsoft thing.
I do all my gaming on a PC or a Switch. Like, I haven't owned a like mainline console in a long time.
Yeah.
Because there's not a lot of value here. But this article talks about it in depth. But basically, Microsoft is doing this. On one hand, they're trying to expand to not just be a console company. Like, they seem to have this idea, which we've talked about on GeekNights for over a decade, that
the original idea of the original Xbox that they didn't follow through on.
Yep, that the platform is not Xbox. The platform is Windows. You can use any Windows PC to play these games if it's powerful enough, or if you don't want to deal with that, buy an Xbox and it'll be guaranteed to play those games. That was kind of like this long-term idea. However, the PC market would sort of cannibalize the console market and vice versa. They would sort of compete with each other, and Microsoft makes money in the consoles as competition with other consoles on their own. So it's a weird situation that it's hard to say what Microsoft should do differently. But what everyone agrees on is that what they did here just pissed everybody off so badly that they almost immediately announced that they're undoing the entire plan.
Yep. I mean, it's sort of wrong to charge for the service to begin with. It's like, even Nintendo Online or whatever, right? It's like,
I mean, it's tricky because on one hand, what about like when I talk about Adobe software, like, it makes sense to charge a subscription.
No. You're not paying. If you were paying for software, that's one thing, right? Like the Xbox Game Pass is fine, right? You're paying for software, right? But you have all these games that you bought, but you can't play them online unless you pay for Xbox Live. Oh, you bought all these games, but you can't play them online multiplayer unless you play for PlayStation Network, whatever it's called. Right.
Of course, a counterpoint there is, unlike PCs, you're not running your own server on your console, so they are providing infrastructure to make this happen.
Even if you buy Overwatch, you don't have to pay for Blizzard.
You got right into it. The counterpoint to that is, if I start an Overwatch server, it's not fucking running on my PC like the Quake 2 days. Blizzard just provides that, and I'm not paying a monthly fee for Overwatch.
No, you're not. It's like any PC game you buy on Steam. It's like, the multiplayer is like included in the game for free. If they tried to charge you extra, if you bought Civ 6 and they were like, oh yeah, if you want to play Civ 6 multiplayer online, you have to pay us $5 a month. No one would fucking pay that. They would be like, hell no.
That's why ridiculous. I'm so suspicious of these things, because it really feels like from my perspective that paying for these services is basically a way to force people who can't afford or don't have access to a, quote, real gaming PC. Like, consoles are cheaper. It's a way to monetize the people who have fewer options.
And want to play online. People who want to play online multiplayer but aren't, gonna have a PC, right, for whatever reason, right? Anyway,
I think it's time for
Xbox Game Pass is a good deal. And there's a news here that says that it has 18 million subscribers now.
Yeah. So you can read this article to see all the details. The funny thing is, there's a nice table on the site, actually. This is The Verge, that shows what the prices are for the PlayStation 1, the Xbox One, the Nintendo One, and you can sort of think about it. The Nintendo One is actually like the cheapest one by far.
Oh yeah.
All right, I think it's time for things of the day. I just put my little mark in here. But anyway, things of the day. So I think a while back I made a thing of the day. It was this video that was like this rotoscope looking animation. This guy Joel Haver, like this guy is a contender for Neil Ciceregian level of humor. Like I want to see where he goes. His channel is great, but
the way he taught, I've never seen this guy before. You linked it to me. I didn't watch the whole video, but I watched enough to see what the deal was. And at least his sort of voice was vaguely Mitch Hedbergian.
Yeah, like he's kind of like awkward and halting, but on purpose for comedic effect. And like he's doing live comedy sketches that are not on the level of guaranteed video, but they're in the same ballpark. Like they're pretty funny.
I liked that it wasn't a yelly YouTube guy.
Yep. But he also made these animations that are really funny. Like he made this series of animations about like RPGs, and they look like they have a really like particular style that I hadn't seen before. And Scott and I both try to avoid linking to the same channel like too often because that just feels cheap. But he uploaded something interesting. He uploaded a video about how he animated all those other videos and just tells you exactly these tools, this process, this is exactly how to do it. And then the whole second half of the video makes a point that Scott and I make a lot, and he makes it really eloquently about how people might say that the kind of process he uses is cheating. Like, it's not really rotoscoping. He's using these tools to, like, automate it. And his answer is basically, what the fuck is wrong with you? Anything that makes the creative process more accessible is a net benefit to society. Are computers cheating? Is musical notation cheating? Like, what is the line between a tool that makes you more effective at expressing your creative ideas versus a tool that lets you cheat at being creative?
You didn't make your furniture with nothing but a pointy rock and a tree, right? You used a power tool. It's cheating.
But the other thing about this is that the process that he outlines, Scott, you and I could do this, like literally with no help from anyone.
I mean, and the other thing is like, oh yeah, people call it cheating. I watched enough to see what the process was. It's not easy. It's not a lot of work.
You got to know Premiere and After Effects. You got to like learn how to use this tool. You got to understand the concept of a keyframe, and you have to have an idea. Like, what are you going to animate?
And you have to draw.
Yeah,
but no drawing. There's just a lot less drawing.
Well, you can just trace over yourself and make it kind of derpy, which he does on purpose for comedic effect.
It's not even drawing as well as he does is not trivial.
True. But yeah, if you watch this video, you could literally follow this process and make a video that looks just like what he's uploaded, and that would be a good like way to learn how to use things like Adobe Premiere. To be honest.
Yeah.
I'm also excited that the tool he used, that Ebsynth thing, is just a free tool like that someone made that looks cool.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So what do you got?
So we have done videos in the past featuring people with various disabilities, showing people who don't have disabilities and and don't know what it's like, how they deal with stuff, right? It's like, if you have this problem, how do you deal with this in everyday life? It's like, this is how. And it's like fascinating because if you don't know anyone who has that problem, then you don't know what the solution is. And this one was one that I definitely didn't know before I watched the video. And the answer was obvious, but still fascinating and interesting. It's if you're a blind person, you cannot see or cannot see well, you're legally blind, perhaps. And you need to, say, pour a beverage. What if it's a hot beverage in particular, right? Missing the cup or, overflowing the cup would be particularly hazardous. How do you do this without another human being just like doing it for you? There is a way that they do it because obviously it's 2021 and we've figured that shit out. But what is that way? Ooh, watch this thing of the day to find out and learn valuable information about people who cannot see.
It's an elegant solution and a good channel.
Yep.
All right, in the meta moment, still can't fucking go anywhere. I guess I had not really a snow day, but a snow hour where I couldn't work because I couldn't access anything. That was fun. Probably going to start reading The Tale of Hanzo again pretty soon because I'm stuck inside.
Like a few times.
I also am almost done reading a nonfiction book that I've been reading.
I was about to, and like 3 comic books came in the mail, and that's basically was like they like stuck their way in between me and Hanjo.
Yep. And also
And I read them
tonight,
all, so-
this is a busy day. We're recording Geek Nights. I had to work, and then I'm playing some more Blades in the Dark. I'm actually playing more RPGs than I have in recent memory during COVID, which has been a pretty
Oh,
good
man, I
time.
have to eat. There's a women's hockey game on right this second, and then
Yep.
there's a Rangers game at 7, and I have to eat food after this show.
Yep, I'm going to try to watch the Rangers game while I order Grubhub and get ready to play the Blades in the Dark game that starts in a half hour.
Oh boy.
I got to edit. Geek Nights might upload into the feed pretty late tonight, just FYI. And Emily is going to use the streaming rig right here to stream the Asifa Film Festival because her laptop battery exploded.
Oh no.
And we're building a new workstation for her, which
Guess you don't need a laptop if you're not going places.
Yep, exactly. Also, the kind of work Emily does, she actually needs a more powerful computer than what I have. i9s actually ain't that expensive compared to i7s.
Yeah. If you could have waited, you could have gotten like a Mac with an M2.
Yeah, can't wait though. Need it now. But I'm looking at a 10-core, like 3.8 gigahertz i9. For the kind of stuff Emily does, that would actually be a significant gain.
I don't know. AMD is kind of killing it right now. It's hard to go down
AMD.
the Intel route.
Eh.
Anyway.
Anyway.
So, this game came out that is like the talk of the town, probably game of the year, right? 2020, I'm guessing.
Yep.
Called Hades from Supergiant Games.
There's been buzz since like 2018 because I think it had an early access and
Right. So this is the people that made Bastion, which I played and beat, which was that game with the narrator, the action RPG. Right?
yeah,
And then they made, what were the other 2 games they made?
Pyre?
Pyre was the fiery one, and
Yep.
what was the other one? What was it? I forget.
I'm trying to
I
remember.
have all of them. They came in a bundle.
Yep.
Anyway,
But this one got a lot of buzz like way before I played it, partly because the art and the story and the dating sim aspects of it were extremely popular among a group of people who wouldn't necessarily always be down for what is basically an action RPG. So there was like the buzz, the buzz was coming at me from a lot of sources I normally don't get video game buzz from.
Right. Well, I think the thing was Bastion was such a huge hit because that was in like the early days of indie games, relatively speaking, right? That was like, it feels like it was around, I didn't look up the year, but it feels like it was around the time of like, after Braid, I guess, maybe Super Meat Boy 1 times, right? A long while ago, right? And then Transistor and Pyre came out after that, and it was like both of those games were sort of sold as from the people who brought you Bastion.
Yeah.
But they weren't as big a hit. And now that I have both those games, because I got them together with Hades and like a bundle, I played them and I can kind of see why. Like I wasn't that interested in playing them further. I could still see the Supergiant sort of artistry and the music and the story and the art. But game-wise, I wasn't interested in playing them really very much at all.
Yep.
Right, after
I've run into that a lot with games where even if the story and the art and the music and like everything about them is great, if the game is just like a typical action RPG, I tend to get bored pretty quick. Like if the game is too similar to what I've played before.
Pyre and Transistor were not action RPGs.
They were not, but I'm just saying generally, a lot of games have great art and story and end up just being simple action RPG or indie platformer.
Transistor is kind of action RPG, kind of not.
Yeah.
Pyre
Did
definitely
we
is
review
not.
Transistor?
I've only ever, the only time, no, we didn't, because the only time I played it was a few minutes recently. But anyway, Hades, on the other hand, right? Hades is basically somebody, instead of trying to be super revolutionary and break new ground, which is what I think you could see them trying to do with Transistor, Pyre, even Bastion, right?
Yeah.
Sort of, right? Trying new things. Hades is like, what's hot now, right? What are people into now? What do we know works? Let's stick to that game-wise, right? And then incorporate all of the things that we're good at as Supergiant Games. Story, characters, narration, artwork, animation, music, right? All that good stuff that they do A+ on all of these games, right? Bring those into the fold, and what do you know? A mega crazy hit game. So what's Hades all about? It's Greek gods, right? Great theme.
Yep.
Nice and public
We
domain.
won't spoil anything, but roughly, you're the son of Hades, and he's keeping you in hell. You're like grounded. Like you're down in the underworld. You're grounded. You're not allowed to leave. Meanwhile, the Olympian gods are all like, yo, dog, we'll help you get out.
Yeah, all of them. Like Zeus is like, "What's up?"
Yeah.
Artemis like, "Hey, come on, let's."
Artemis is the first one I gave maximum gifts to.
But they're like,
Huntress
my boy
wizard.
is Dionysus, right?
Dionysus, I think, is my favorite of the gods, actually.
Yeah, of course. Anyway, so all the Greek gods that are not in hell, right? The Mount Olympus ones are like, "Yo, come on out, son of Hades. Come up to the earth, right?
Yep.
Come out to Mount Olympus and chill with us, right? It'll be totally sweet. We're Greek gods. We're bored and we got nothing better to do.
But they're still Greek gods, so they're all kind of low-key beefing with each other, but like in a friendly way.
Beefing with Hades. Like, hey, it'll make Hades so mad if we help his son." Right. So you're the son of Hades, and you try to leave hell, and you do this in an action RPG way, right? You walk and you push buttons to swing your sword or shoot your bow and arrow. You pick a weapon each time, right? And you try to make your way out, and it's a very Slay the Spire style roguelike situation.
Yep.
Every time that you leave, you're sort of following the same general kind of progression of like, okay, this part of hell, then this part, these enemies, then those enemies. But the rooms are procedurally generated. You're choosing which kind of room to go to next, like Slay the Spire.
Yep. And
right?
some of the bosses you fight change based on story events. Like you're fighting this one Fury at this one spot for a while, but eventually you get there and there's a different Fury and she says different stuff, and then you learn some things.
You die and you go back to fucking hell, because that's what happens when you die. You just come right out of the pool of blood. There's your dad. You're back. You just die and you appear in your house, and that actually makes sense plot wise. I
love how Hades every time is just like, "Are you finished yet? Like, was that fun? Was it worth it?"
Link dies, you save and quit, and you're back at Link's house. That doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah,
but this makes perfect sense. It's like, yeah, you die, you're back at your house. Perfect for a roguelike. Play again.
And basically everyone knows you're trying to escape and is kind of with you except Hades. So like Achilles is there and he's like, "Yo dog, I stole another weapon for you."
The Minotaur and Theseus are not with you.
No, they're not. They are.
They do not want you to escape.
Man, fuck them, because I love how Zagreus is like, "Oh man, you guys are awesome. I'm a big fan. You want to spar?" And they're like, "No, we're actually going to kill you for real. Fuck you."
Achilles is totally with you. Anyway. But yeah, you do this over and over in a roguelike fashion, and each time is a different run. During your run, you're choosing and getting different abilities from the different gods. So every time you go, it's a new experience. Oh, this time I got abilities from Dionysus. This time I got abilities from Hermes.
And like Slay the Spire, they're not balanced. If you get a combo that is OP, awesome. Roll with it. Like one time I had the spear and I got something that made the spear longer, and I got the Artemis thing that makes you do extra crits with it, and I got the thing that makes you hit faster twice. So I could basically just like power down a boss to nothing from a distance with the spear, doing nothing but my regular attack.
Yep. So it's like every time you play is a completely new experience. It doesn't really get old very easily, right? It's fresh every time.
And the gameplay loop is not the typical action RPG gameplay loop of you can spam and take a lot of damage that you often see out there. The game, much like Slay the Spire, is a lot about don't take damage, be clever, treat the fight almost like a puzzle.
Hit points are the resource that are hard to recover. You don't just like, if you lose half your hit points in a room, in the next room, you don't have them back.
Yep.
Right? So they are a resource that you can sort of spend, but you can refresh them sometimes, but not so easily. So yeah, you basically get to make it from the beginning to the end of the game in one shot without dying too many times.
But it's interesting how, like, as you play, the game has stateful progression too. Like you can slowly level yourself up to make the game easier.
Every single time you die and you go back home, you can spend some of the resources you got to sort of permanently upgrade in like the magic mirror or whatever, or upgrade the weapons abilities with the hearts and things like that. And then that way future runs become easier and easier as you go, right?
But while those matter a lot of it is you will get better at the game. Like those for that first whole area. Even if you never leveled up anything, you'll just get good enough to be able to do the entire thing without ever taking a hit.
Yeah, the first time I went and played the game, I died in like the first area. I didn't even get to the first boss. Right?
But now when those big fat guys are coming at you, I'm just like, well, bump behind bump, and I'm good.
Yeah, it's like now after playing 30 something runs, it's like the first area is like Mario 1-1. There's no way a Goomba could hit me.
But
Not even that good at the game.
I cannot stress enough the variety of things you can upgrade in the course of a run is the secret sauce, just like in Slay the Spire. There are so many different directions of upgrading that will lead to radically interesting and sometimes emergent behaviors. Like, you'll figure out a degenerate strategy with the spear and a certain kind of thing.
And this is something I want to point out that I've also seen other game developers and designers talking about in the community, is that how many games out there are like giving you items that are like plus 10%, whatever, and it's like you get that, and now the game is still basically the same after getting it, right? It doesn't feel rewarding to get something like that. While there are many items and upgrades in Hades that are plus X%, they also all do something significant and noticeable that change the game.
Yep,
right?
like getting any upgrade feels very powerful and radically changes how you interact with like the next level.
Like every single thing you can choose just changes the way the game is played. The same way that like when you play Super Metroid, like, okay, they're not like, hey, Samus, your regular shot is the same, only does 10% more damage. It's like, they don't do that. They do, you have a space jump now. Right?
Yep.
It's
or like the weapons. One of the weapons is a sword.
You have a space jump.
Like the sword does a bunch of like sword stuff. The spear, totally different game. Might as well be a different game to play with the spear. The shield, the fucking gun.
Yeah, there's a gun.
It's just a gun.
Spoilers gun.
Yeah, spoiler. Well, it's, you know why it's not a spoiler? If you go to map your controls, there's an unbound default key for reload that is not explained.
Yeah. No, it's not.
Spoilers, there's a gun.
Yeah. So the other final component of this game, right, is the dating sim part. So of all the different, things you can collect when you're in a run, some of the things are only good for that run. Some of the things you bring back to level yourself up, or level your weapons up. But there are these
the gifts,
alcoholic beverages that you acquire, right? What are they called again?
I think, isn't it just ambrosia?
Oh, ambrosia, that's what it is. Yeah, the nectar of the gods.
Yep.
Right?
So anytime you get a favor, like you see the icon of a particular god, and you can accept the favor, or you can give that god a gift, and you can also give gifts to a lot of the non-gods that are just around.
Give them a gift and
right.
But basically, anytime you encounter any character in the game that's not you, any NPC, most of the NPCs that talk, at least gods.
I wish I could give something to that chef.
You can't give anything to the chef. The Medusa, the cute Medusa.
Oh, I gave the Medusa head a few. She's super cute.
I gave the Medusa head the most. The dog, Cerberus.
Cerberus got my first gift.
I don't think you can do for the dad. You can't give it to Hades, I don't think.
I think you can, actually.
Maybe you can, actually. I don't remember. But basically, even characters you encounter during a run, right? Like Sisyphus, you see him during runs. You could, if you have an ambrosia, you can give it to them, and that will increase their favor with you. They'll like you more.
This is the dating sim part of the game.
If they like you more, A, they give you a cool item to use during runs, which is good. And B, that you sort of get cozy with them, and you sort of unlock plot and things with them.
Yep.
Right?
Like Artemis told me some things that were interesting once I maxed out my affection with her.
Yeah, it's like whenever I talk to the Medusa head, she's like all nervous, and I'm always, instead of me saying like, at first, like the first time I talked to the Medusa head, it's like, hey, and then she like runs away. Now I talk to the Medusa head, and it's like, hey baby, how's it going?
I gave one to the Fury, and that was a fun bit to go down.
Yep.
But the cool part about it is the
point is this mechanic is, even if you've like completely dominated the game, it's like you want to play to get more so you can do this to all the characters.
Yep, that's the loop I found, because in a normal action RPG like this, I'd play like I'll run to the end, and when I finish the run, I'd often just quit, like, okay, that was my run, I'm going to go do something else. But then I land back in hell, and I really want to go talk to everybody, give a gift to someone, and like see what other plot things I might have uncovered.
Yeah, and also unlock other, right? There's still more. It's going to be different, even though you've beaten the game. If you go on a run again, it's a roguelike. There's going to be infinite runs. It's not a spoiler. The ending that you'll get, there's like more and more endings. So the more times you beat the game, you get more stuff there. And also there's just new things to do. You haven't run out of things until you've beaten the game many, many, many times.
Yep.
Right.
And the
I only
plot,
beat it once. I didn't beat it many, many times, but it still felt like a lot was there left to do if I go back to it.
yep, like the plot that you uncover, you start to feel like, oh, I see where this is all going. All I'm going to say is it is surprisingly complex, and there's a lot going on you can unlock in this
It's a
game.
Greek mythology plot.
Yeah.
Right? You know.
But I also appreciate how it's not super dialogue heavy. It's like you'll see an interaction, and like the interactions are just very interesting and pleasant, but they also don't overstay their welcome. It's not like you're reading just like pages and pages of lore. It's like, well, Medusa, you have a different conversation.
Yep, I don't read pages and pages of lore, right? It's basically like, you know, a little sort of like the amount of text you'd get in a Zelda game, but only with voice acting instead of
Yep. And you get fun little bits like I got my Artemis really up, and then I started getting my Ares really up, and the two of them are kind of low-key beefing. And now that beefing kind of happens in the dialogue I have. Like Ares will be like, you've got that stink of her on you again. Like fun stuff happens. And it's interesting enough to keep you playing the game even when you really should go to bed, even if you would have stopped. And you can even give a gift to Skelly, the skeleton whose sole purpose is to learn a new weapon when you get it.
Yep. So the only thing I want to say about this game is the only negative is that there's no multiplayer, right? This is the best of games I've played, of action RPGs I've played, right?
Oh, if I could play co-op in this game.
Just the way, like, forget about the roguelike parts of the game. Forget about all that stuff. Just the way the character controls action RPG wise, right, is better than like any. It's like better than a Zelda, better than a Secret of Mana.
It's so tight. The frame timing just feels right. When you get hit, it's your own goddamn fault. Nothing feels cheesy.
Nope. It's like there isn't another action RPG that controls as perfectly and nicely as this one does. I really wish there was a co-op, right, way to play just, you know, with an action RPG that controls like this one. Just take the controls from this game and maybe the art style, right, the three-quarter view, I guess, and just make another action RPG that's a co-op one. There's tons of co-op action RPGs out there, but they're all kind of meh.
If I had to articulate it, it's that like hitboxes and like what damages you is like the right level, coupled with like I said earlier, it's almost a puzzle. Like it's execution. You have to time things and jump around, and like it's an action game.
You can actually see what's going on, right?
Yep.
It's like you can see things and dodge them.
But like you can play this game without ever getting hit. Like you can treat it like a puzzle that requires you to execute to solve the puzzle. And a lot of action RPGs really fail in that regard.
And you encounter enemies that you've encountered on previous runs. You know how those enemies behave, right? So, for example, there's a room in the lava area that you can get sometimes where there's a bunch of witches that shoot lots and lots of projectiles everywhere, right? So if you have a deflect ability, that room is so easy because you deflect all these projectiles and they go right back to where they came from, and the room, you beat it in 2 seconds.
But you know what I started doing? I used to focus on upgrades that like complemented my own actual skills in the game, but I realized that what I needed to do is focus on the upgrades that cover for the things I am dog shit at.
Anyway, but the point is, if you don't have deflect and you get in that room and suddenly there's like, it's like a bullet hell situation, right? And it's like, yeah, it's the same room. You encountered it 2 runs ago, right? You know this room, but because you have a completely different, you know, loadout this time, you didn't get any deflect abilities.
Yeah. The answer to the puzzle is different.
You have to figure out, using the abilities that you've got, how are you going to deal with this bullet hell room? How are you going to dodge all these things and not get killed? Because it could be super dangerous if you didn't, you know. You could also end up thinking like, is the bullet hell room coming soon? Maybe I should take a deflect ability.
Yeah.
But last time I played, I died at the end boss and the deflect ability wasn't that useful on the end boss. I need some ability to help me with that.
Yep.
You know, and
similar to Slay the Spire. Oh, these group attack cards are really good to get me through like the birds that attack you in the second floor, but they suck against the boss.
Is the end boss going to be the time boy, or is he going to be...
The problem is, if I get 1,000,000 powers, it's always the bird. If I don't have any powers, it's always the time boss. Like
Sure. So yeah, so if you like an action RPG, if you like a roguelike, if you just like the story bits, right? Any one of those things is good enough to be like, yeah, just even if you only like one of those parts,
It's enough. The game's fun
the
for
game
you.
is so good at that part that it's worth doing the parts you don't care so much about to extract the pleasure of the part you do. And if you happen to enjoy all three of those things, this is the greatest game you've ever seen.
Yep. Like, I would almost look to this as an example of a game that was polished to the right degree.
Indeed, yes, very much the correct amount of polishing.
Yep. And if I wasn't playing Blades in the Dark, like imminently, I would probably just play a little bit of Hades before bed.
I mean, I would. It's like I beat it and I stopped, but like I could just go back to it. Like I've had the urge to go back to it, and it's just the only reason I haven't is because I'm telling myself it's like, no, I need to do more than one thing in my life.
Right.
So yeah, play that Hades. The hype is legit.
Yep. All right. Good stream. 66